Here we go. And in five, four, three, two, and one. And Zoe, welcome to Cam Talks.
Hi, Cam.
Thank you ever
Nice to
so
be here.
much. Wow, look, I mean, like, you don't live very far from me, so I
I know.
figured.
Oh my God, I had to get the bus here.
Yeah, well, this is you,
No,
you
we're
journey through
housemates.
Middle Earth to get here, and
Yeah,
so thank you very much for joining me.
you're welcome.
How is it? Have you done any podcasts before?
No, it's my first. I'm
Ah,
excited.
okay,
Got the
okay.
videos going.
Yeah,
My little
yeah.
mic.
You got a little microphone. This is a serious setup.
It's
Actually
serious.
didn't cost a lot. These
Mm.
mics were only about 20 quid each.
Yeah, yeah,
And then this little recorder is a little bit spenny, but that's
yeah.
because I'm a
I like
filmmaker.
newer actually. I've got the like photography stand, so
Oh, really?
take my selfies, professional selfies.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, we're going to talk about that because obviously there's. I mean, just quickly give us an overview of who you are and what it is you do.
Yep, so I'm Zoe. I'm an illustrator. I studied textiles, but I'd say I'm more like a textile artist. I work through fashion, textiles, drawing, anything I can get my hands on, DIY.
Oh,
I love a
DIY.
good tool.
You are known as the DIY expert
I
in the
know.
warehouse. Why is that?
I just always love like building things. Like since I was young, I kind of took off from my dad, like fixing things and prodding things about. I always want to know like how things are made and like
Mm,
taking things apart. Just really curious.
yeah.
Really curious person.
I get that, and obviously, so growing up, you were very hands-on. What was? I mean, where did you grow up?
I
Where's
was
home?
I was in born and bred in Hertfordshire, so it's not that far from here, about 20 minutes from Finsbury Park.
Oh
Um,
wow!
it's
So you're a
about
London girl, really, aren't you?
basically,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
My parents grew up in London, and my dad always worked in London, so in Euston. So I was always like in and out, and this was like Finsbury Park's like the nearest like port of call, so
Yeah,
I
yeah, yeah.
kind of feel like I know the area. I'm not too far from home. Um, but yeah, it was really nice. It's Welwyn Garden City. It's like a certain percentage is greenery, so it's quite
Mm.
beautiful. It's really nice to
A
go
little bit
back
different
there.
to here then.
Yeah, a bit different,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
but very small.
Yeah, I can imagine. So what made you think about living in a warehouse? Because I don't know if people
Mm,
know, but we actually sat in my bedroom.
yeah.
No
Whoop, whoop.
windows, just small spaces.
Yeah,
Right.
Swedish prison.
Swedish prison. How did you go from being in such a nice country, homeland, to coming to a warehouse?
I mean, there was a long journey. I left home when I was 21.
Yep.
And I moved to Newcastle with like a bunch of friends, and that was
Newcastle.
yeah. So that's like one
Wow.
extreme.
Jeez,
Like,
that's up north.
yeah. So I moved out to Newcastle. I didn't go to uni or anything there. It was just like a bunch of friends that had like gone up there to study. And I just kind of wanted to join them. I wanted the experience of like living away from home. It was hard.
That's an experience. I
Very
actually
difficult.
moved up north for my first experience moving away from home to Manchester.
Oh, really?
Well, I mean, it's weird, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. What was
Very
the
far.
weirdest thing about moving to Newcastle?
It was just like it just felt like I was transported to a totally different place. This is the
Yeah, yeah,
first
yeah.
time living away from home. I'm really far from home, so if I couldn't just like go back around the corner, had to get like a 4-hour train or a 8-hour megabus. God,
I know that feeling.
I did that a couple of times, and no,
Never again,
no.
never again. What was it that made you move to Newcastle then? What were you doing up there?
So at the time, I was working. I was working for All Saints, and loads of my friends were up there anyway, and they had an opening for a visual merchandiser. So
Mm.
I went up there to apply for that job, and I got it. Didn't really like it so much. I wanted to go back into fashion. I've always had that thing in my head that I wanted to do fashion design. So I started going to college to get the grades that I needed to go to uni, which brought me to London.
I
So
see.
I left my home, and then went to Newcastle, and then back to London.
Wow. So there and back again.
Yeah.
I like it. It's a real hero's journey. And over that time, I mean, what was it that made you really come back to fashion? Because I know you were saying that there's always been a lot of other things that you could do, whatever, but now you're kind of solely focusing on. Well, I mean, what do you focus on? Is there one thing?
There's not one particular thing now, which is it's kind of opened my mind a bit because I've had it in my brain for so long that I wanted to be a fashion designer since being really young. I used to like play on the sewing machines and things. I was very set on that, but then I was kind of ignoring all the other things that I like doing and all the different crafts that I can incorporate. So generally, I'd call myself an artist rather than a fashion designer because it's a different medium now that I'm using.
Interesting.
Different way of
What
expression.
actually defines an artist?
An artist, I think it's being able to express themselves through a certain kind of medium. I don't say whether it's like fine art, whether it's sculpture, installations, just something that makes people question things or feel things.
Yeah. I think it's tough as well because artists tend to, well, the struggling artist is the classic stereotype. But are all artists struggling? Are we all struggling to be in some way someone we're not, or what's?
No, I think you should always try and keep it very honest through your work. So I don't know. Obviously, there's loads of people that are struggling. I mean, I've been one of those people. But no, not as a whole. I don't think all artists are struggling artists.
Yeah, but is it I mean, what is it that people struggle with the most about being themselves and being authentic, being original, I guess? Because I'm a filmmaker, I watch other films and I say, oh, I'd like to shoot a scene like that, and then suddenly I'm not original, right? Because what I'm doing is I'm stealing from other people's inspiration, their workflow. Is it about being original as an artist, or are we forever stealing concepts, ideas? And,
you're forever interpreting the world. That's what it is. Nothing's. I mean, you can come up with a new idea and new things, and but you've taken inspiration from something that already exists. So,
what inspires you?
What inspires me? Ooh, that's a big question. A lot of things.
I mean, do you read? Do you watch films? What's your thing?
Yeah, I watch films. I'm not a big reader. I'm dyslexic, so I find it quite hard.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you know what? Like, I think just day-to-day life really inspires me. Like, there's something beautiful about like the ordinary things in life. Like, you can stop, and I think when you stop and see something for really what it is, it can be really beautiful. Like, I was looking at a pile of rubbish the other day, and I thought it looked beautiful. I wanted to paint it because
I thought that's what you were doing.
Like a nice composition.
Wow, so it literally is at any point you could be inspired.
Yeah.
And how do you kind of then block out your time? Obviously, we're all busy people, but
that's the thing.
how do you block out time to look at rubbish?
Well, this is the thing. This has been my ongoing struggle because, like, I could get so many ideas in a day, and I need to be able to prioritize what is more important and what really, really inspires me. I mean, I can look at something on a surface level and say, yeah, the composition, the colours really inspire me, but beyond that, what is it saying?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think during uni, I had a bit of a meltdown where I was like, I could look at anything and I'd just be inspired and like being, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. I'm like changing my ideas constantly.
Interesting.
But
do you think that's all kind of helps being an artist? Because surely you've got inspiration everywhere and you never know what is going to set off that creative spark, right?
Yeah, but I think when you've got a lot of it, you need to like really home in because otherwise it's just overwhelming. And I think I got myself overwhelmed quite a few times where I need to focus on one thing rather than being like spread thin.
What's the most inspirational thing you've looked at in your life? Do you ever remember a moment? I think I went to Giant's Causeway, one of these places in like Scotland or Ireland or somewhere, where it's just all of these rocks that are all and they all look as if they're they're perfect those shapes that are all just rocks and rocks and rocks, and it's like aliens built there. And the guy told us the story,
actually,
right? The story is about two giants fighting and David Goliath type thing. But I remember as a kid just standing there and just not wanting to leave. My parents were like, come on, it's time to leave.
Quite
I'm like,
young.
very young, yeah, and I remember for the first time ever being just inspired about the story of why, the myth of why it was created, but then looking at it and thinking, how is this real?
Is it man-made? No. It's in the cliffs, isn't it?
Yeah, God knows how it's been made.
Yeah.
Honestly, it's been made in some I don't know, aliens.
Yeah, aliens must be.
Has to
must be them aliens.
Yeah, but this is the point. Have you seen have you seen sites where you've just thought, we're lucky to be alive.
I remember I went traveling. Actually, this was before I went to Newcastle. So I went traveling to South America, and we were in the middle of a tour across the salt flats, and it was beautiful. It was like really nice. And then I think it was a 2-day tour, and we had to stay in this little like, I don't know what you call it, like a lodge or something like that. And one of my friends was like, come outside, have a look at the sky. And because there's no light pollution, you could just see like the stars forever. It was like honestly awe-inspired. I'm getting shivers talking about it.
Skies do that to you.
Yeah.
And stars, of course. I mean, and you're absolutely right. You don't see it in London or busy cities, but when you see the amount of stars out there, you kind of...
So awe-inspiring.
What's the question you ask yourself?
Yeah.
It's just like, who am I?
We're so small and insignificant. Like, I could do whatever the fuck I want.
That's literally it, isn't it? Yeah, and who knows? I mean, well, I don't know. The question is, do you believe in aliens?
Yeah, I definitely think there's another life form. I mean, the galaxy is so vast, there can't not be.
Yeah.
There can't not be another, like, environment for life forms to grow.
Absolutely.
I mean, the nearest to us would be, is it Europa? It's like Saturn's moon.
Like another galaxy or another star.
No, yeah, I think it's Saturn's moon. Don't quote me on this.
Okay, yeah, no problem. No fact check here.
Yeah. But because there's like a layer of ice around it, and I think it's constantly expanding and compressing. The water in between is just warm enough for life forms to grow.
I remember
just
hearing
the right
about this.
temperatures.
Yeah, bacterial sort of creatures, whatever it is. Well, look, not just within our own galaxy, but you look at a star and you think, that's literally our sun. And if we have the capabilities of having all these planets, then I'm sure there's other stars that have 10 times, 100 times more planets than we do. So there's definitely got to be aliens out there.
Oh, I love stuff like this.
Yeah.
Even though I can't remember it all, I'm not a sciencey kind of girl, but I just love it.
I mean, are you into conspiracies?
Not so much.
I think that's like the ultimate storytelling, isn't it?
Yeah.
Is that if we can come up with ways, alternative reasons for things to exist, that's always what we've wanted to do, right?
Yeah.
I was really captivated by the pyramids because, I used to watch these documentaries where, one filmmaker's decided they are aliens.
Yeah.
Aliens did this, and they're so sure of themselves. It's aliens.
My mum loves stuff like that.
Right.
She'll get carried away and texting me. I'm like,
But I'm surprised that hasn't rubbed off on you though, because my dad's a massive conspiracy theorist. Without going into that whole conversation, he has always made me question things to the point where now it's a bit like, I don't really believe anything anymore. I think everything's just...
question everything. You've got to question everything. I mean, you definitely can't rule it out. But I don't know. Yeah, I'm not... Some conspiracy theories I'm not really that into, but I don't know.
What's your favourite one?
I could be convinced. Oh, God.
The most outrageous thing you've heard?
Oh, I don't know. Maybe
The Earth is flat is pretty interesting.
Yeah, that is something else.
These people go to town on that.
That documentary... They proved themselves wrong, and they were so... when you're just like, you're so convinced of your bullshit, you'd like double down. You're like, no, I like...
Keep digging.
Yeah, that is pretty bizarre. Other than that, like the aliens in Area 51.
Oh, did you see that thing recently on Facebook? The Storm Area 51. Let's all do it. They can't stop us all.
Yeah, that's Naruto run.
I find it amazing because I wonder how many people actually did that.
It's coming up soon. It's not been.
It's not happened yet.
It's in September.
Ooh, well, maybe we've come early. Maybe we can talk about this. Before the event.
Yeah.
And hopefully, if it's
Wish them luck.
hopefully it's not a mass slaughter. Because these guys have guns, right?
Yeah, they do.
And who knows what's under there. But I'm pretty interested in this kind of stuff anyway, because I genuinely do believe that aliens have visited Earth. And
possibly.
only because, well, you know what it is. It's like, who knows what an alien is? An alien could be, something as silly as, a cup of water. I can't comprehend what possible, evolution has gone on.
One can.
Like energy, like Pandora, like Avatar.
Yeah.
You have the trees in the forest. They have this neural network which talk to each other. Why don't we think that exists?
Yeah.
It makes complete sense.
Yeah.
These trees have bloody roots. They go deep down. I'm sure they've been talking for longer than we have.
Yeah.
Because this is the other thing, is that, as we know, is very, I wouldn't want to say millennial because we're not quite in that bracket, but we're people of the 21st century with access to the internet, and we've found out all this kind of stuff about history and stuff. People used to believe that the Earth was 10,000 years old. I mean, still, some people do. But the reality is that we share so much evolutionary, relations with other creatures, like lobsters or bees, or things that we've
So
literally all
mind-blowing,
come
isn't it?
from, right?
Yeah.
Millions and millions of years. So
Yeah.
yeah, I like to think that. I was going to ask, when did it all begin?
When did all what begin? Life.
Life. Where did life begin?
Oh God. No idea.
Well,
I can't fathom a guess.
No, well, look, next time I find a scientist to come and talk to me, I'm
Yeah.
gonna demand that kind of question.
Definitely.
So, listen, as an artist, you're always looking for more inspirational things, and you put a lot of time and effort into your art. What do you do when it's not quite worked out the way you wanted it to?
Depends. If it's like it's not working out in a like a long time period, then I just kind of step back from it. I think sometimes when you're trying too hard, I'm not going to get the best out of what I'm doing. And I've kind of learned that the hard way by like forcing myself to work every day and like being quite hard on myself. But really, if you take a step back, then you'll be able to kind of review what's good and what's bad.
So do you have like a whole load of half-finished stuff just kicking
Yeah.
around? You're like, well,
Yeah.
today I'm gonna go finish this.
I'm gonna review this.
Yeah,
Not
yeah.
never. But depends. If it's painting, if it's if it's any kind of medium, I kind of do look for like the errors as beauty. Like I think
Ooh.
imperfection is really nice.
Yeah.
When it comes to it, and being quite like fluid and unpredicted is really nice. It kind of takes that kind of I don't know. It's just something. It's just saying something about that time period.
Right.
It's really nice.
Because would you say that you're a perfectionist?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a perfectionist so much. I think that's kind of why I have half finished things, because I'm like, no, that's not good enough, or can I like cut myself short sometimes or halfway through a project? But yeah, I'm a perfectionist. It's
That
like
must be
all
tough,
or
especially
nothing.
when you know what you've just said there is that, things that are kind of not broken, but, are different, are the things that people like, or the more the capture the moment. It's hard to step away from something that you imagine to be perfect, and then it not being quite as you saw it.
But yeah, my idea of perfection isn't very like polished perfection, if you know what I mean. My
Rough
idea,
around the edges.
Yeah. My idea of perfection is something that works for me and works visually. So it can look very like unfinished and raw, but it sometimes. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's
I mean?
but the beauty of art is that everyone has their own way of interpreting it, right? And even as a filmmaker, I guess I focus a little bit more on creating things within a certain boundary. But art can inspire all sorts of things, right? I've seen people at galleries that I've been to who've sat there the whole day staring at one thing.
Yeah.
And
can absorb into something.
Do you like doing galleries? Do you?
Yeah, I love doing galleries. Yeah, I haven't been to a lot recently because I've been working a lot. But
working a lot, I see.
yeah,
Yeah.
I've got a few in my headlines.
Your headlines.
In my eyesight.
In your vision.
In my vision.
In your crystal ball.
I have no idea what I'm trying to say.
But look, you also you've put on exhibitions as well.
Yeah,
and stuff
I
like
have.
What's it like bearing all of your soul to the world to judge?
Very scary.
Yeah.
Yeah. The first couple were really nice. Actually, no, all of them were really nice. I need to get back on that. Doing more exhibitions actually. But yeah, it was really nice to have like a reception with your work. Yeah, it's scary. I even feel like Instagram and things like that is kind of putting your work on show as well, as like making yourself very vulnerable with your work. Like all my art like says a lot about me and like my past and things like that. So when you're bearing your soul to people, you don't want to be criticized, but I don't mind. Like I don't mind being criticized, but it's also like you do need it. But it's also a scary thing to be like, what if people hate it?
But this is the point, isn't it? Is that like as an artist, you get to be the person in the arena. You get to be the person in charge of what it is and what it is not. But then for other people to come and interpret that is that hard? Giving away that kind of that thought to someone who just maybe just looked at it, glanced at it. Do you want to explain more about your art, or is it?
No. That everyone has a different experience. Everyone has a different past. So that tunes into something different for people, and I wouldn't want to change that.
Mm.
I would never want to force my ideas on someone else, or my views on someone else.
Because the thing about art for me is that like I will have a piece of artwork that I've made, right? So I don't like having things on my wall that are like, oh, that's the Mona Lisa, even though I'd never have the Mona Lisa on my
You
wall
know, just
because
kicking about.
just there up there.
That's the Mona Lisa
I
there.
got the Mona Lisa on my wall. No, I don't have the Mona Lisa, but obviously, you know, growing up as a kid, you make these really shitty paintings and stuff, and you keep them and you put it up, and it means a lot to you, right?
Yeah, of
Will
course.
someone buy that for £10 million? No.
Well, it depends what they see in it. Depends what.
Right.
Yeah.
Jesus, how do you value art?
I don't know.
What's the
Don't know
demand?
anymore.
Like, how do you value, you know, because surely the Mona Lisa, right, that's probably been through many, many wars, you know, many people have owned it, and that's kind of part of its history, is that's why it makes it valuable. But how do you, you
Get
know,
to that point.
well, yeah, how do you document a piece of artwork's journey? Do you know what I mean? Unless it's the history books that speak about this piece of artwork. Interesting.
Yeah,
Have you ever seen any of these, you know, like you could fake a masterpiece, right? Not just in the physical.
I'm thinking of that Jesus one that looks like, you know, the one that looks like a monkey.
I don't think I've seen that one. No. I mean, if it's anything from that sort of time or any sort of Renaissance artist or something, that's got to be worth something, right?
Yeah.
You know, until someone realizes it was made in a shed. And, you know.
Oh, what you mean knockoff paintings?
Yeah, knockoff paintings.
Okay. Yeah.
What's the deal with knockoff paintings?
Oh, I don't know. I can't tell
Do you
you.
never just feel like packing in, you know, the expressionist stuff? Just, oh, screw it, I'll just go and copy the Mona Lisa. And...
Yeah. No. I don't know. It's kind of like if you copy something, it's just lost its value. There's no sentiment to it.
Yeah.
It's like, why would you want that?
Well, I mean, you know, if I wanted the Mona Lisa, I could just print it off Google, right? Stick
you
it in
could,
a frame,
yeah.
you know.
Yeah, but it wouldn't be the Mona Lisa. It'd be a copy.
A copy. Well, I don't know if that's a bad thing. I don't know. I look at paintings, I get
That's fine
inspired,
in
right?
its own world, but it's not gonna be. It's like the Mona Lisa would be the centerpiece, and everything. All the.
You're damn right it'd be a centerpiece. It would be literally up there on my wall. I literally wouldn't be able to have it in this
the red
house.
Tapes around.
Yeah. And get the security guards to come and guard it and all that kind of stuff.
I haven't seen that actually. It's quite small, isn't it?
I've never seen the Mona Lisa either. I went to Paris once, I believe, and I just decided not to do the queue. I was like, such a shit queue, isn't it? Look at that, you know, all to go in and look at this little thing. Not really my cup of tea.
No.
But anyway, so I mean, in terms of traveling, have you done a lot of traveling? Is that something you value?
Yeah, I love traveling. I haven't been for a little while.
Where would you normally go? What's your favourite destination to travel to?
Obscure places, really. Anywhere. I don't think there's anywhere in the world that I wouldn't want to go. I'm going to Croatia at the end of the month.
Very nice.
Should be fun for Outlook Festival.
Oh,
Whoop, whoop.
Okay. So do you go to a lot of festivals? Is that something you enjoy?
A little bit. I mean, I haven't really been able to travel as much as I would like to, just because I hadn't had my headspace right and stuff like that. So, but yeah, there's loads of places on my bucket list.
It's on the cards.
Yeah.
It's on the cards. I like it. Talking about headspace, I mean, like, how do you give yourself the room, and how are you patient enough to kind of let yourself just be who you are as someone who just wants to finish things and get things perfect? How do you kind of deal with that kind of pressure?
I have now recently need to give myself now recently I've like tried to give myself more breaks and really like step back and think about myself. Like I've been doing yoga and that like even like small things like stretching in the morning like really like changes your headspace and kind of gets you in tune with your body before you go and like, you know, go into like all this work and stuff. And I do tend to like forget that when I'm working, when I'm in the midst of like creating something, that my body is like nagging at me being like, stretch me, like I haven't had any exercise, or like I need water, or I really need to like focus on what my body needs.
But can you really structure that type of thing as an artist who might stay up till 3-4 in the morning just to work on one little detail, and the next day, bam, that's your routine kind of done, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I just do it as and when. I kind of like, if I'm not making any progress, I just kind of sit for a bit, listen to what my body needs, and then take it from there, really.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, look, I think it's about time we saw some of these pieces of
yeah.
work because, I have a little present for you, by the way. But
Is that what that is?
Yeah, I mean, I tell you what, we'll save that towards the end. But let's take a look at some of this work. So you brought in your portfolio with you today. Thank you ever so much. I love people bringing work in. What we'll do is, so I guess what we should do. Let's try and think about this. Why don't I hold it up like this?
Yes.
And then, I just want you to tell me about it.
Yeah.
Is this gonna be right if I hold it up like this?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Yeah. So let's go like this, and let's see what.
There we go.
See what this art looks like. Perfecto.
So-
All right. So explain to me, bait.
Bait, yeah. So this was like this was in 2017. So this was for a competition, fashion illustration competition, which the year before I was a runner-up, which was amazing.
Wow.
So bait, was I'd recently rediscovered my love for grime music.
Oh yes.
So I was like dancing away in the studio, and I was like, just spitting all these lyrics, thinking I'm bad, and that's where I came up with this. All my illustrations are kind of like semi hyper realistic, very fluid and bold, daring.
It's incredible. And what gave you the idea to kind of to mask off the mouth and say bait? Is it bait? Is it obvious? Is it like what's it stand for?
Yeah, so it was just like I kind of was going through a period where I would just like kick myself about things that I said. Like when you get like the fear of like what you said something and embarrassing things. So I was just like kind of covering my mouth, being like, whatever I say is bait.
I see. Interesting. Wow. I mean, it's beautiful as well because obviously it's come from somewhere that I'm sure you'll know that you'll know exactly where it came from. But for me, it's I interpret this as the colourfulness of our generation, which are trying to express something that's not bait.
Yeah.
That's how I see it. I see this as how do I say something that's not obvious?
Yeah.
Which is kind of what it looks like she's trying to do. Is this? She's colourful, but anything she says is going to have been said before.
Yeah.
I love it. Okay, so that's lovely. What else we got in there? Which other ones should we show off then?
These ones.
This is interesting.
These I did for Pigeons and Peacocks magazine. Let me move my mic.
Interesting.
So what was the theme for this? I think it was Digital Revolution. So this is issue 10. So this was inspired by augmented reality or VR.
Yeah.
I had like a VR headset that I got given ages ago, and I was like, love this. This is a new world. Like. So that's what that's about.
Amazing. And then this one here, this is quite profound. I'm interpreting this as a hand reaching out to the EU. I mean, it says EU on there, right?
Yeah.
So is this a political message?
Yeah. So this was after Brexit.
Oof.
Yeah. So this was the theme of like having the heart of the EU in the hand and kind of like falling.
Wow, I mean, it almost reminds me of the quote, "Don't bite the hand that feeds you."
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, and does does things like the EU, does that kind of come into your normal artistic process? Are you inspired by politics?
I wouldn't say I'm inspired by politics, but I mean, it's something that's there that I can't ignore. I mean, depends on which sense you mean. I'm more. Yeah.
But this was all about political revolutions, right?
Yeah.
So is it just political? I mean, most revolutions are political, aren't they? What do you think the role of artists are for revolutions?
To make people question everything, what's going on. Don't take things for granted. Yeah.
That's kind of what we were lacking, I think, in the EU referendum was, to be really honest, I'm completely impartial to these things because, I can't comprehend how the world works in this way. But, things like the EU decision, does Britain leave or not, I have to say, I didn't see a lot of for the leaving, created in art. I didn't see a lot of influences from that kind of that side come to me at all.
Kind
Yeah.
of semi-conservative. Yeah.
Well, because
You can't
actually,
really-
you know, it's a real tough one as well, because
Yeah.
a lot of people who say, "Oh, we're not conservative, but we want our country back," and of course, that's inspired by a whole load of issues, which we're back online.
Okay.
That those sort of issues might become more or less, you know, wrong if someone was to come and say it in like, "Oh, here's a piece of art saying why we should leave the EU." I've seen a lot of people saying EU unity, you know, stay together, all that kind of stuff, but I haven't seen any art that expressed why we should or shouldn't leave. Oh, sorry, I shouldn't leave in general. You know?
Yeah.
But so when they came to you, what was the idea behind this? What did you want to express?
So this was part of the digital era issue for Pigeons and Peacocks. So yeah, it was basically holding the EU, which is kind of falling,
Slipping.
Yeah, slipping in the hand.
Wow, love it, absolutely love it. Right, let's have a look at some others, and let's go on a couple. Oh, I mean, I love the ones where the eyes are open. I'm a big fan of eyes as a filmmaker. I'm always looking to connect with an audience through the eyes, because you know they're the gateway to the soul.
Yeah,
and all that kind of
my
stuff.
thing is ears. I love ears. I don't know why. I have a bit of a fetish, not a sexual
Wow.
fetish, but like I like
You
ears.
said it. You said it. Let's find a good ear. I mean, they're all good ears, and but I want to find a very eerie ear, because it must be one of the hardest things to paint, surely. Let's have a look. I'm trying to find one.
I don't know what it is. I think it might be the curvature. I like big
curvature.
ears. I like small ears.
The thing is, so like, every person's different, right? So how do you get all the proportions right? Because this seems like quite a small ear, but I've got quite big ears. I think I've got big ears.
It's just, I just do what feels right, really.
What was this one for? What's the purpose of this?
So that was for, I was illustrating for Noctis magazine. So this was Richard Quinn. I don't know if you know Richard.
I don't know, no.
So he's a CSM graduate, and he won, he's all very floral, like amazing kind of dresses. He won, I can't remember what the award was. He won an award, and the Queen happened to turn up at the show.
Wow, Queenie gave him his award.
Yeah,
Bloody
and
hell.
Anna Wintour. I was like, where have I? Like,
Wow.
How did I get here?
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously, you got to work with some people. When did you do all this work, by the way?
It's all probably from 2015 onwards.
Interesting. Okay, and before that, what were you doing mainly?
So, I only really got into painting once I was at university. So I did my BA at London College of Fashion. So I did print design, which is all very like.
I was gonna say, it feels like you're very much
surface design.
Stamper.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is that right?
Stamper. I like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's kind of where that came from.
I like it, and of course that's why your love of fashion is integrated so nicely. Yeah. Oh, here's some ears. Here's some lovely ears. See, this ear compared to the other ear, it's like why did you make one ear big and one ear small? What was this one about?
It's just nice proportions. It's just that one was actually, I think, a blind draw. So I kind of closed my eyes and
you close your eyes whilst drawing.
Did a continuous line. I did.
Wow. Well, there you go. If I closed my eyes and made a film, it wouldn't turn out half as nice as this.
See, this is the thing with just letting it be and not perfectioning, making things perfect. Okay,
be honest for me though. Did you do a couple of attempts at the blind? Because you know what I mean. It's like that first time you're like, why don't I try and do that blind draw again? Shall I?
It's not. You're not looking for perfection in a way that it needs to be like. Accurate, I think, is the word I'm looking for.
Interesting. Feels a bit like Quasimodo. From Notre Dame, Hunchback of Notre Dame. Never seen it?
No.
Disney. Anyway, it's a lovely drawing, and I think what I love about it's a drawing surrounded by very print, and painty feeling, and I like that about your work. You combine a lot of different disciplines, which is.
I mix like digital media, new media with traditional painting skills, which I think is like a nice overlap and says a lot about current state of affairs.
Do you have a favourite colour? Is that a childish question? I think only children have favourite colours, right?
I don't know if I have a favourite colour. I've had like recurring colors recently, and that's kind of like it's almost like a mint color, but really kind of like grey, mint
Ooh.
grey. In fact,
Like
yeah, like that, yeah.
This kind of work.
But maybe
We'll
a
give it
bit paler, maybe a
wow.
bit colder.
Okay, interesting. See, I think my favorite color recently has been purple, which is why I'm lovely to see your purple hair. Why don't you tell me? How about your look seems to represent a lot of what you stand for. How do you get out of bed in the morning and put clothes on? Because
Um,
you're very
one leg at a
stylish, so
time. One leg at a time. I do.
one leg at a time. That's it. But are you conscious about fashion, the way you dress, or is it
Yeah,
more?
I feel like a lot of people, yeah, when they dress, they dress to be seen. So like they dress from other people's perspectives.
Ah.
I do that sometimes, yeah. But I'm drawn to like garments as a piece of art. Like there's something that I really like about a piece, and it's gonna stay with me. And I think the way that I compose it as well is kind of similar to my illustrations. It's like, feels like it shouldn't work, but it does work.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Oh, it definitely works. But do you kind of mix and match different outfits with different styles, or do you kind of try and go for one look?
I try to mix and match. Yeah,
Yeah.
I like right now I'm into like corset-y kind of Renaissance stuff
Ooh, oh, very nice.
with like combat pants.
I love it. Wow. Serious got Guan
Yeah,
going. I
yeah.
like it. Got Guan, eh? Did he not just inspire a whole load of guys
did.
to just start dressing cash
Yeah.
or not cash, like hipstery, right?
Yeah.
It was.
And do you remember Trini and Susanna?
I do. Yes, of course. I gotta admit, I've never really cared too much about the way I look, but sometimes you do, and I think for me, I care. I used to care a lot more when I was working for other people, but then when I started my own company, I used to then just go to these conferences and events in a cap, t-shirt and
Yeah.
little skateboard.
Yeah, I don't say much. I've definitely had the same thing. Like teenage years, I felt so uncomfortable.
Who didn't?
Yeah,
Who
I know.
didn't? Teenagers, right?
And like ill-fitting tops and like, yeah, it wasn't great. But yeah, no, now I feel like very like calm, casual, like definitely comfort over anything.
Yeah.
I would never put myself through like feeling uncomfortable, because that just doesn't like that echoes in the way that you carry yourself and the way that you feel, and like I just don't want to do that.
Well, you say that, but I remember when the onesie came out, and I wore that onesie to death. Like I should never.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
You were one of them.
I was like, you know what? I was like, this is I never have to get changed ever again. I have a onesie now.
God.
Yeah, and I don't know what it was. I think it was the fact that I was allowed
Yeah.
to now walk around in a onesie.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Were you at uni at the time?
I was
seems
at
like a
uni at
very
the time. You know what
uni
it is that my mum actually bought me a onesie for Christmas, and I thought, well, there you go.
Was it like an animal?
It was a monkey one.
Okay.
So I had the approval of the parents,
Yeah.
which I thought, that's great. I'll just wear it all the time then. Until my mum's like, we're going out. You can't wear that. I'm like, all right. What about my Uggs?
Yeah.
I didn't really have any Uggs, but I wish I did. And that was the funny thing about the onesie look was that you kind of need a pair of Uggs with it.
Yeah,
don't
you did.
Some like...
That was a look.
Yeah, but looks change all the time, right? And it's
Yeah.
really interesting because now we live in a world of Instagram and like, seeing people's fashion all the time. It's like, where do we go now to look for the next trend? Because we're already kind of so saturated with different looks. And you go to festivals these days, and depending on the festival, obviously, you've got people dressed as different things. What is it that's leading this, fashion wave now?
Oh, it's hard to explain that. I think for a lot of people it is what they see in the media and what they see with other people. New designers, new artists, different ways of producing garments.
I've seen those man bags. What are they called? Those little satchels.
Oh, the Roadman bag.
The Roadman bag. since Glastonbury Dave got up and sung that song, I'm sure they've skyrocketed in price. Maybe you should make a what do you call it? A man bag. A roadman bag.
Roadman bag.
Roadman bags. Hey, that could be the next big thing,
Could be.
In our toilet we have a K-pop inspired toilet.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and every time I look at that,
Like,
I think
yeah,
they all just
trans.
dress the same.
really?
Like, they all dress.
Oh, I like
They
that.
dress the same but different.
No, I like
Yeah.
the Japanese layering.
Yeah.
It's good.
Layering, is that what you call
Yeah,
it?
yeah.
Ah, interesting. So just add accessories,
Yeah, I
add
love it.
colours. Yeah.
Yeah. What was it? Was it Hyper Japan that's in there? I can't remember what it was. But
Hyper Japan.
it's like a book. It's like pieces from a book.
Oh, do you know what? I've never had enough time on the toilet to read it. Yeah. I just look around and I'm just
The
like,
style
oh.
book.
And it's for me, I think fashion's one of those things where at one point in my life, I'm sure of it, I will get myself a stylist. Someone who's going to be like, here you go, Cam, here's a box of, you know how they do those like HelloFresh, like delivery of your food. I would like that for clothes. And if I could afford to have a box sent to me like once a month, that would be this month's cool looks. I'll be like, great. Thank God I don't have to think about this anymore
Yeah.
because I just
Really, you
can't be
don't.
bothered.
Yeah, you just want to whack something on.
Wax something on, yeah. And my biggest problem is shirts because I don't iron anything. In fact,
Yeah, me either.
yeah, I mean, and
It's really bad for stuff
people
like
say
that.
to you, "Oh, did you want to iron your shirt?" I'm like, "Well, no." And they're like, "Well, it's creased." I'm like, "Yeah, I know." And it's like
It's a look.
it's a look. It's a crisp
Yeah.
bag look, isn't it?
Yeah,
You just get on with it.
Relaxed.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And then of course the other thing is trainers. Like I used to be obsessed with trainers back in the day. Going to uni and having a student loan, which of course wasn't for anything real. It was to go out and buy some new stuff. And now in the last year, I've downsized like 90% of all my possessions, and I've just got rid of them all.
Yeah.
Got rid.
Really Marie Kondo'd my life.
Yeah.
I literally put everything in a pile. What was it last night, night before? Just really like went through what wasn't
Savage.
what was and wasn't working, and
yeah.
I feel so much better. All the stuff in there is like stuff that I really cherish. And
Wow.
like,
But how do you keep on top of that? Because you're always producing more, clothes. You're always producing more art. You must have just, I mean, infinite amount of room apparently in a space that's so small. Like, how do you sort it out?
I mean, I do have to make a cut at some point. Really refine what I have and what I keep and what I give to people, and
Giving's good.
yeah, I think that's a really nice thing.
Yeah.
I'd like to do a lot more trades, like trade for trade.
Ooh.
Skills sharing. And
I see.
stuff
So like
that.
your top from my shirt.
Yeah, something like that.
But
or
that's
like
not
you
quite
can
fair,
you
is
can
it?
teach me how to make I don't know, teach me video stuff, or and I can
see.
teach you how to like sew or like how to fix something.
Yeah, well, if I could get some of your illustration work done, I mean, hey, this channel is looking for a cover,
Yeah. Hello.
But yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. Like it's like part of the whole barter economy, right? The idea that we have stuff that's valuable, like our time, the most valuable resource, and yeah, if only there was a way that we could express that to people without. The itty bitty nature of, well, that took you no time to do that. But there's, I think that's maybe something that since moving into a warehouse, I found that people are a lot more open to sharing. Communal living, as you know, it can be terrible at times.
It can be, yeah.
But listen, at times it's the best thing ever, right? You couldn't even operate without that. And I'm sure there's a lot of people who, I wouldn't call them freeloaders, but, you move in with a bunch of people who,
Oh, I've had a few of them in my time. Not here, but oh my God.
Yeah, because look, you've lived in quite a few warehouses, right?
Yeah, so I lived around the corner for two and a bit years.
Wow.
It was nice. We had like a good core group of people.
Yeah.
And then it just started getting messy. It's just like dishes everywhere, and like I'm really susceptible to my surroundings, so I can't live in a place that's like where the mold has become sentient. And,
Flies are coming from everywhere.
Yeah, and we had cockroaches, which is
Nasty.
not great.
So, I mean, living with other people on that scale, communal living really is quite a new thing for me. And it's not just your stuff in the toiletries. If you leave like a shampoo in the bathroom, it'll be gone the next day. I brought home some butter from Alderney, the little island that I live in the Channel Islands, and they have the most organic grass-fed cows. It's beautiful. Brought home a tub of that butter. The next day, there was like a slither left. And I was like,
That's so bad.
Great.
My butter went missing as well. Is there a butter thief?
There's definitely a butter thief.
We're going to know because they're going to start to balloon.
It's not just butter, is it? It's like, it's other things, like weird little things.
Yeah.
And I think, people use your tools a lot, right? Because they, I mean, first of all, like you are tooled up to the teeth.
Tools.
Tell us, why are you so obsessed with tools?
Just love making stuff.
Yeah?
Yeah, I love it's like so satisfying when you finish like this is like it spreads through like every part of my creativity. Like just finishing something, making something is just so exciting to me. And yeah, I think it's kind of like boomed since I moved into a warehouse because I've got a lot of space, so I can do more and like make more things and make furniture and oh god, I love making stuff.
I love the fact that you have these tools because like it's instead of going to like B&Q and like having to buy all these really expensive tools, Zoe's got them.
I have.
But does that not annoy you every time one of us comes to you and says, "Can I borrow your drill? Can I borrow your saw? Can I borrow this?"
Depends. Yeah, I mean. There are periods where people are like asking me constantly. I'm just like, ugh. It depends what it is. I've like, as you know, I've like put my foot down, said like little things like, I don't know, like stuff that they weren't gonna replace.
Yep.
Just go and get it yourself. Like use my drill and stuff, my sander and stuff like that. That's fine. Like I'm not gonna expect you to go out and get a new drill just because. But yeah, I like to make sure I'm prepared.
It's really tough though, isn't it? Because, like living with so many people, you don't want to be, having to lay the law down every day, but there is a need for that, and I'm really like grateful for people that are able to do that because it sets expectations for everyone to be a little bit more open and honest. And I think that's the thing I've learned living in a warehouse with, up to 20 people. You're just always worried that you're going to kind of like, annoy someone or whatever, but that's life.
Yeah.
That's what happens if you live with people, right?
Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah.
Just be daddy with all the tools.
Yeah, and I mean, and that's literally it. Like, unfortunately, you'll be known. Oh, don't worry about doing anything yourself because Zoe's got that covered. But there is something nice about that, as you were saying, with like being able to trade time for time for people.
Yeah.
And I used to do this thing called cam credits. So cam credits are the idea that
have I got some cam credits?
Now that you come on this show, you've got a whole day of my time, which a cam credit, is the barter economy. It's about how do I give you the value that you gave to me, and certainly I'm more than happy to do that because
sounds great. Pinky promise.
Yeah, pinky promise. There's some videos to be made. I feel it.
Yeah.
Well, look, why don't you tell us now a little bit about what you're currently working on? Because obviously I know that you've just finished your masters. Is that right?
No. So I applied for a masters, which I didn't get.
Wasn't quite. Sorry, you applied for the masters.
Yeah, which I didn't get, which is fine because now I've kind of like it's made me see what I want.
What was that in? What?
That was in fashion design.
Right. Okay.
So I was still in that mindset of like I want to be a fashion designer, and that's it.
Are you looking for approval?
Yeah, maybe a little bit. Yeah. But anyway, so I'm going to focus. Well, I'm not going to focus on anything really. I just want to be able to like explore all my options, all the different crafts and things like that.
Let it come, right?
Yeah, I've kind of built my website, which is up and running, zoethomas.com.
Fantastic. Go and check that out, zoe-thomas.com.
Yeah.
Amazing. And what can we find on there?
So a lot of my drawings, a lot of my textile work. There will be shortly, look out, there'll be a place you can buy my prints through Saatchi Art. And yeah.
Wow, interesting. And how are you going about getting new clients? How do you go and find these kind of illustration jobs?
Yeah. So right now I'm reaching out to magazines for the upcoming fashion week here in London. So I'll be looking for jobs through that. I'll be looking at freelance jobs, print design, which you can do like online. I think Pattern Bank as well. So you can just sell your prints and stuff like that. And I'm just really exploring what's next. Really, I'm excited.
I love it. I mean, look, with the modern forms of communication, there's the clients are like 2 calls away, literally. But the interesting thing I found about your work is that it's so unique and different. And I come from a very traditional tech startup world when it comes to the work I've done with clients, and they all have the exact same websites, the exact same brands. It's the clean, minimal.
You can fall into that. Yeah, it's trendy.
All I want is for someone to say, okay, here's our website made, but let's go and now find an illustrator to mess it up, to give it a little bit of character. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's nice to have people balance you out. I mean, I'm the same. It's nice for someone to come in with like like pristine, polished ideas, and then I go and fuck it all up.
Yeah.
It just works. It's nice.
Absolutely.
It's nice to have
You
that
make it
contrast.
original, right?
Yeah, it's
That's
nice
how
to
you
have
make
that
original things. And I think, especially in the business world, there's so many books that explain about branding
Yeah.
that business people are so caught up in the idea that this is how we have to do it. Nike have the swoosh, Coca-Cola have the little funny writing, so we're going to have it like that. And I think there's not many outliers in business world right now because they fail to understand the creative side. And I think that, there's always a battle between the creative and the technical elements of everything. Even within your own mind, you're wondering whether creatively this is enough, and then you're like, well, technically I can't possibly achieve that, right? And you've got this balance. But in business world, you very often just get technical people with a product, and when it comes down to doing anything creative, they'll outsource to product designers, graphic designers, illustrators, and you think you kind of need to have a little bit of a vision of both.
Yeah.
Do you agree?
Yeah, I do understand that, yeah.
Yeah, and I almost feel like there's some visionaries that we know of, and I'd probably say Steve Jobs is one of my greatest, inspirations, because he really understood that marketing is like a fundamental thing to make a good product, right? And I think as creative people, we often lack the technical skills, and likewise the business people lack the creative skills. And being able to kind of to seesaw that approach in something that is big like a brand can be quite difficult.
Yeah.
I mean, you must have experienced people telling you, "Oh, we want this." In fact, and they're almost telling you exactly how to do your job. At which point you're a bit like, "Well, why don't you do it?"
Yeah, I have had a couple like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it depends what they're wanting, really. If it depends how much input they're wanting from me.
What's your perfect client? Like, how do you like this to go down with people?
My perfect client, someone that comes to me and they want me to capture a feeling.
Ooh,
I like that.
I love that.
I love something that's very like vague and like, oh yeah.
And does that give you more room to explore different ideas?
Yeah, I always do. Start kind of like linking ideas. Mainly like write them down first and stuff like that, and then I kind of like there's a lot of it's good to have like a conversation dialogue between the client and me. Just that kind of like explaining what I'm thinking about and what I'm thinking of doing, and then they can cut down at that point, and then I can go on to painting, and then colors, things like that. So it's nice to have that conversation between back and forth. But yeah.
But do you ever like feel like there's a lack of balance in your passion projects and the projects you do for money? Do you try and equal that out by always having a pet project on the go? What's your
right now, yeah. I am just doing things because I love to do it. Which is fine, and it's good for building portfolio. Yeah.
But it doesn't pay the bills.
No, it doesn't. Not yet, anyway.
Not yet. Yeah.
I mean, I haven't sorted out set up my Saatchi art profile, so I need to update that so I can sell more prints.
I see. So there's obviously platforms now that you can go to and have all your work on there, and people can sell it. I mean, that's another beautiful thing about modern, communications technology, is that we don't have to always sell to people in your area now. Like you might find that your work goes down really well in Japan.
Yeah.
And they'll be hooked on it. Maybe that's what you got to do, right?
Maybe
you got to test out these.
This book.
Well, I mean, look, more importantly, and we've spoken a little bit about, digital marketing and how you can kind of reach out to many people around the world and all sorts of stuff. But obviously using things like Facebook ads, you're able to create one video that could target people in Japan, in New York, in there, and there, and there. And that's a really good opportunity for creatives to actually create art on a more bespoke level. So creating something for people that only New Yorkers are going to enjoy might involve, I don't know, sewing bagels to a hat.
What?
I'm not an artist, but I imagine bagels are a thing that New Yorkers love, right?
Yeah, I get to a hat.
Well, I don't know. That hat might go down really well. Like, hat parties, they're on the rise. But the point is...
Do you love a good hat party?
I love a good hat party, especially with the bagels on top. No, but, obviously Lady Gaga's bacon dress isn't going to go down very well in the Middle East, is it?
Right, yeah.
But, so you're able to kind of create, the work that you want to aim for certain people.
Yeah, definitely.
You ever thought about that?
Yeah, I need to do a lot more marketing. Yeah. I think I needed to get that fashion thing out of the way, like, know what I'm focusing on, But yeah, I am looking into it. Looking at my SEOs, things like that.
SEO, search engine
Oh
optimization.
yeah, that's a ticket.
It's a ticket. It's you know what, it's so old fashioned though.
Oh
And
really?
yeah, honestly, and
It's like,
it's one of those things. So SEO is great when Google was very limited to, you know, like there wasn't that many people doing the same thing as you. But and SEO is great if you want to come up in search engines and stuff like that. But actually, it's so saturated, you know. And
yeah, yeah.
what a lot of people used to do as well. I think Google probably got rid of this now. But they used to say they had a white background on the website. They would just put white text with all of their words,
Oh
so
yeah,
that it
okay.
literally came up on the search engines.
Yeah, yeah,
All
yeah.
sorts of stuff, all
That's,
sorts of stuff.
that is
But look, obviously, you know, with video and social media, you can now actually create your own TV channel every
yes,
single day.
I could.
You know, I
Such a
mean,
rules
even
good.
podcasting, like this has doubled in the last 5 years. And the reason why this is really important is not just because of the 2 hour conversation we're having, but the ability to extrapolate one conversation that we're having and put that onto Instagram
Yeah.
can give a lot of value to people.
Yeah, definitely.
So that's part of the marketing mix that's quite new, and it has meant that filmmakers who are traditionally terrible at business have had to come into the business world and start hearing KPIs, like these key performance indicator.
Oh yeah, okay.
So people are, oh, how are we going to judge? You know, how are we going to know whether or not your video has made us £1 million? It's like, well, you can't.
Yeah.
You know, people were forever telling me, well, how am I supposed to track, you know, the return on investment? I'm like, mate, if you watch one of my videos, tell a friend about it, and your friend comes and buys from you, ain't no way I'm going to be able to tell where they bought from. You know, so it's part of the whole, you know, the modern marketing mix, which is product and marketing have become the same thing. You know, there is no I mean, look at Monzo, right? You have a Monzo card, it's orange. You know, that wasn't a product decision, that was a decision based on status. So how do we create a status symbol around the thing that is a really good product? Because the product itself, Monzo, the UX UI, the
it's so
experience,
good. Yeah.
brilliant,
Yeah.
right? But if it wasn't orange, no one's going to say, what's that?
Yeah, yeah.
You know, so I like to think that the marketing
That is a
people
good
and the
point.
product
Yeah, I've
people
never
have to,
thought about that.
yeah, they have to sit down these days.
Yeah.
And likewise, we have to allow ourselves to learn bits that we never had to learn in the past because we are now a product, right? We are personal branding. We know it's hot and like, you know, this is why people put themselves online. But if we don't have the business skills, then actually we're just annoying ourselves, you know, because like you've done things you didn't like. You know, school was shit. You know, you had to go into lessons you didn't like, but it taught me that I have to actually do things I don't like if I want to, you know, have a complete, you know, mix of skills. And I think that's maybe something our generation struggle with. You know, we all want to be free and independent and just do our own passion projects.
Yeah, I feel like people do overlap into different parts. I feel like everyone needs to be, or feels like they need to cover so many different parts of like a company and stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's more entrepreneurs now than ever. You know, more people doing freelance jobs, being by themselves. But I think it's a blessing and a disguise, really, because the blessing is you get to go and do what you want when you want. But the or the bad thing really is the fact that when that client doesn't pay you on time, you're
That
screwed.
messes everything up.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you're screwed.
I had that with freelancing. It's quite risky.
Yeah, how do you get a client to pay you on time? This is if you can answer this one.
Well, I don't. I put it on the invoice that you need to pay in a certain time, but they don't even look at that.
They don't, do they?
No, it's just communication, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, it's tough. I think I've waited about 60. No, wait. The most recent problem I had was 70 days after the job was done. You know, and they call it a net 60, which means that you can't expect it beyond 60 days. I'm like, all right, cool. Well, that sucks, but hey, I get it. You're a big business. And then 75 days later, I'm like, so all your little rules
Where's
about
my money?
Yeah, and of course I phoned up the accounts department, you know, on like day 50 just to see if they received my invoice. They said, sorry, I haven't received your invoice yet. So it's going to be part of like a week long there. I think, oh great, here we go. They're just shifting it, and then it's like phone
they
up
do
again.
that, yeah.
Oh, I haven't received your
I've had that a
invoice.
couple of
I'm like,
times.
isn't that the oldest trick in the book?
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
I know a few people that do some incentives. So they'll say if you pay early, you get 5% off or something, and if you pay,
That's good.
late, then they're going to add 5% onto it. But depends on the client, right?
Yeah, it does.
That's it. I noticed there's a lot of flies kicking around here.
They're just everywhere. It's
Does my
summer
head
in
in.
this
Does my...
house.
Well, you know what it is? I think a lot of people like plants.
Yeah, they do. Yeah.
I have a plant in
Yeah,
here.
you have. Have you named him?
Yeah, his name's Bruce.
Bruce. Oh, of course.
Bruce, yeah. Bruce is actually after Finding Nemo character, the shark that I really like.
Okay.
I'm not a fan of plants, honestly. I was gonna get a fake one, but
Yeah, I kill plants.
what, on purpose?
No, I just neglect them.
You neglect them.
Yeah, I didn't mean to.
Yeah, and then they look sorry and sad,
Yeah.
and then the whole
And then I
purpose
get
of them
sad,
is
and
well, that's the
then-
yeah. You're supposed to get them so you feel happy, right?
Yeah.
And then they look so sad that you're like, great,
Yeah.
couldn't even have a plant.
Yeah. It's nice that our housemate takes care of it.
I know. I see it all the time. It's like, oh, we have a garden now. Brilliant. I'm like, I don't want to have to deal with that
Yeah.
stuff. But
Yeah.
yeah, plants do some good things.
Yeah,
but
no, that. Yeah.
keep it
I want
outdoors.
more. I do want more plants, but I just know I'm not good with them.
Fake plants are good. What's this plant you've got us behind us? You brought
That's
this
a
into the studio.
Yeah, so this is a fake plant
It's fake.
because I can't keep a real plant.
I love it.
And then this is like a coffee. Do you remember those coffee jars?
Yeah. Oh, fantastic. Nice.
Painted and put some fur on it.
Wow, and you made that yourself, and the rope
Yeah.
and everything.
Uh-huh.
Interesting.
Yeah, I actually did. I learnt to do macrame.
Macrame. What's macrame about?
So it's like a form of like tying knots. So people use it for like fishermen's nets and things like that.
Yeah.
So it's just a series of knots. It's almost kind of like knitting, but with knots.
Interesting. Is that how you do your hair? Do you do your hair yourself?
No, this is braiding.
Oh.
Box braids.
Knots and braiding are different then.
Well, knots in like a textile sense. Is
Oh,
like
I see. Yeah.
Knitting is kind of like a series of like catching loops,
Right. Yeah.
and weaving is like crossing over. Sorry.
It's real old school, right? Because I've been watching Vikings recently, one of these like medieval shows, and seeing how they made fabric and made things back in the day, I was like,
so intricate and stuff
not
like
that different to how they make it today. I know that big
Yeah,
machinery happens,
yeah,
but like you
yeah.
know, they made it happen.
Yeah, it's
Even the
crazy, isn't it?
cavemen had to have a loincloth.
Yeah, where did they get that from?
We've all seen that.
Not the
you know.
loincloth store.
Yeah, exactly. You know, like I'm sure there was someone in the cave making that sort of stuff, and
Yeah.
so it's really old skills, right? And do you find anywhere that you get these skills from, like?
Yeah, so actually macrame I did a residency in Slovakia in 2014.
Wow.
So they taught me various different like dyeing crafts, like lace making, macrame, crocheting, like a certain kind of crocheting, weaving, which is really nice, like in the big loom, like you could just weave for hours. Oh, I love it so much.
Weaving, wow.
Yeah. So you've got this big loom. It's almost like this, and you've got like a pedal underneath, and you've got strings that are kind of like guiding through, and they're like on a roll. And then you've got this shutter, I think it's called a shutter, where it like pulls every other string up. So then you can like guide whatever fabric you're weaving along. And then the shutter goes the other way, and it pulls the other strings up.
I love it. Sounds dangerous.
No, it's not dangerous.
Something to cut your fingers off.
No.
No?
All it is string that you're really touching.
I see.
But yeah.
But back in the Industrial Revolution days, like I heard some stories. They used to like, get kids to work in these cotton factories and stuff,
Yeah.
right? Like that's some pretty deep shit.
Yeah, textile has quite a shady past.
Yeah, I mean,
Or shady present as well.
What is
to be
that
honest.
about, man? Like, so I mean, look, like I understand that manufacturing goes to the cheapest place. That makes
Yeah.
complete sense. But why can we still not create an ethical manufacturing process for fashion?
Yeah, we need to have regulations in play for big companies. 'Cause they're just going to keep making stuff.
Right.
If the demand's still there, people are going to still buy it. Like, so yeah. I would say the onus is more on the companies rather than as consumers, because the companies are making people feel like they're out of trend, like a week after they brought something. So they're making this happen. So they're perpetuating this fast fashion. And then, yeah, I mean, the consumers are somewhat to blame.
Well, consumers always want something new, right? That's
Yeah.
the nature of consuming.
But if it's not there, then you wouldn't want it.
Yeah, no, definitely. But do you feel like there's a new wave of consumer, which actually are a lot more ethical, a lot more,
Definitely.
looking for sustainable products?
Yeah, definitely. People are very cautious about things like that. People are like, oh, it's so good with YouTube and like people about upcycling things and not, chucking things out.
But that's a problem, right? I mean, look, if Nike want to sell more shit, then you know they don't want to be saying the message that go and borrow or take something and trade something with a friend of yours.
Okay, maybe not that, but they still can't. Yeah, they still shouldn't be producing as much as they're producing if they know that a certain amount of it is going to go to waste. I think there should be sanctions in place for people that waste a lot of things.
Can they not just recycle their clothes? Like, can you recycle fabrics?
Well, they don't want to. Because
Wow.
they want to give you something new.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about Nike.
But you know
particular.
how like you can recycle plastic and it goes and makes other plastic, and I don't know the
Yeah.
process
Oh,
exactly,
right,
but it
I
sounds
see.
like they smelt it down or something
Yeah.
and then remake it. Can you unstitch clothes? I don't even know what this stuff is made of, man. Like, what is it?
That's probably a cotton.
This is Primark.
Yeah, is it cotton poly blend? Because if it doesn't crease when you get it out, then it's got
It's my body
polyester.
heat. It gets
Yeah.
it all out.
See, polyester you can't really. I think cotton you can, because then you can like blend the fibers down again.
But there's no one really that stands for that in the industry, right? I mean, there's no like big names that actually are, super gung ho about recycling and creating a sustainable way of making their clothes.
Yeah, I think it's because it's so expensive at the moment. I don't know.
Imagine if Primark just suddenly said, "Okay, guys, we're gonna not make an extra couple of million this year because we're gonna create a sustainable way of doing it." People would be like, "Oh, bored." Boring. But look, these things change, right? They change with consumer behaviors, and I do think that art is to thank for every single revolution we've ever had. When people get influenced by other people's thought process, then they start practicing what these people preach, and that means that being sustainable is not wanting to go and buy 2 for 1, even though it says 2 for 1 on it, because you don't need it,
It's
right?
value, isn't it? It's like people want to feel like all that time that they've spent getting money is being like used valuably. Like, yeah, it's very hard. It's very hard to like undercut that, especially when you've got places like Primark and H&M and stuff where you can get clothes for really cheap, and you don't want to if you don't really. Yeah, if you don't want to spend a lot
Fashion, innit?
if you don't want to spend a lot on I mean, I'm guilty of it as well, but I tend to now like really cherish the stuff that I have and rework it in ways that it becomes new.
Yeah, there's something about shopping as well, though, that there's just an experience. Like, I remember going shopping with my mum and my sister when I was like a kid, and just hating the fact that I had to like sit outside changing rooms, and I sit there on my like little Game Boy, but they love it. Like, they absolutely love it, and like to bring in 10 items and then come out with 5.
I do not like it. It's a very gendered thing, isn't it?
It is.
Gendered.
Unfortunately, it is. But maybe that comes from movies like Pretty Woman, and
It's
the
the
whole
influence, yeah.
going out, spend loads of money on clothes, getting a drink, going home, trying them all on. I'm definitely guilty of that. As a kid, my mum used to make me do a little fashion show when we come in from a shopping trip.
Cute.
Yeah, I used to love it. I used to love it. I remember actually, whenever I did anything that I went out and bought stuff. So like if I had to do like a sport, I would go out, buy the sport stuff, and then I'd come home and wear it all night.
Yeah.
Just like, yes,
This is my new
this
stuff.
is my new get-up. Yeah, absolutely.
It's like when I was I have these memories like when I was younger, and I used to love decorating my room and painting my room and like changing it and tidying, and I used to like change my room and tidy it and like get my mum and dad to come up and be like, look at my new room, I'm a new person, look at me. They're like, yeah, well done.
Wow. But you're so impressionable at that age, right? And, and you're like, yeah, I'm never going to have a messy room ever again in my life.
Yeah.
Because look at it now.
This is me now.
That's it, yeah. I remember when I first learned to make the bed, and I thought, this is too tidy.
Yeah.
I can't do this. I can't sustain this level of
Yeah.
tidiness. But a lot of people say now, actually, that making your bed is one of the most important things you can do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard
Closes
that.
the chapter, doesn't it? And
Something like that.
yeah, closes the chapter of you sleeping, and then when you get back into it, and it's like opening the chapter to.
Yeah, well, people say a lot of stuff, There's a lot.
People say words.
People say a lot of words, and in fairness, there's a lot of people that will listen. Hopefully, a lot of people will listen to the things that they care about. I never like to. There was we had Nikki on the other day who said never accept advice from someone you don't want to be like.
Yeah.
And it kind of goes without saying. There's a lot of influencers now in the world world that we just didn't have, 10, 20 years ago.
Yeah.
We used to almost drink from the same pool of attention, whether it was like artists or, pop stars or whatever. Maybe you found some people in a magazine or something. But now that we have social media, the pool now is, well, it's not a pool, it's a stream. And that stream splits off into many little micro streams where we all drink from a different one.
Oh, I
and
see.
do you know what I mean? So your tribe can have all manner of things to give you satisfaction, whether you're listening to podcasts about art or you're watching different influencers. And so now we are so much different than what the status quo used to be, that I wonder kind of how we're gonna everyone's niche, but at that age of like, I don't know, between 6 and 12, you're so completely susceptible to your parents' influences, your teachers, the things that kids at school tell you about. And so at what point do we tell kids that being different is right? How do we encourage people to accept that we are all completely different and we don't have to conform to one thing? That's deep, man.
Yeah, that is very, very
Woo!
deep.
CamTalks going into a whole new extreme here.
I mean, you've just got to praise people for being who they are, I think.
Is that something that you've had a lot of, with your work? Have you had a lot of support?
Yes and no. Yeah, it's been, I mean, I think going into university, I kind of wasn't ready for the criticisms that I had, because my college, I was getting straight A's. And then I think my first subject, I got a C-, and I was distraught.
Wow.
And my tutor, she was ruthless.
Ooh.
There was a lot of crying involved, but it's really
it
shaped me into the person that I am now, and I got straight A's from then on.
There you go. It's the school of hard knocks, right?
Yeah.
I think you have to learn to accept criticism without questioning it, because eventually, if you think you know the answers to everything, and if you're not willing to improve and to feel shit, I think I'm like, there's this whole new thing about like young people being like snowflakes and like not wanting to like experience problems. No, we experience problems all the time, and sure, we voice them, and maybe older people don't ever voice them because they never had the way of doing it, but it doesn't mean that we don't still accept that we feel shit. Accepting that failure is going to happen, and then getting back up the next day and just going fresh at it, that's what makes you, I mean, eventually you give your own feedback to people and they get a little bit sensitive about it. You're like, damn you, if only you knew, I'm helping you out here,
Exactly.
But it can go the other way, right? A lot of people, I mean, look, mental health is a massive thing these days for everyone. I don't think it's just these days. People always struggle, right?
Yeah, I feel like I don't know what it is, whether people, because we've had like social media and stuff that's becoming more apparent, or people are seeing that other people have it and are being more open about talking about it. But it does seem to be a thing that is it's quite intense with our...
It's a tough sort of subject as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because I really can't say that I've ever experienced mental health issues in the same way that the people that I see in the campaigns have.
Yeah.
And so suddenly I don't relate to that.
You do, yeah. Sometimes you can be like, it's all, you feel like it could be all or nothing, but no, there's such a vast array of...
it's colourful, right?
Yeah. So there's such a vast array of...
That's the doorbell going on. We'll leave that. It's probably just someone delivering a package. Yeah, I mean, the thing about... so for me, mental health is kind of... It's a given. Like, everyone's going to feel ups and downs, everything. And being able to support people who are going through issues, for me, is very much about giving them a positive distraction that allows them to form new good habits that... don't involve telling them that they've got mental health issues.
Yeah, definitely. Cause I struggled with mental health issues since I was like 15 till like maybe, I'm like better now, but I mean there's parts where I need to keep my eye on like how I'm feeling and stuff. Sorry, what did you just say? You said
yeah, no, I mean generally, my approach to talking about mental health is not to talk about it, and actually just to try and bring certain qualities out of people that they didn't know they had, and that's the way I would look at it, because I've never actually had to deal with that. I mean, what is it like? It's a broad spectrum, right? There's depression, there's addiction, there's all manner of issues. I mean, how were you affected by mental health? What was your experience, or what it is, you know?
Well, I don't know. I just kind of thought it was. I initially thought it was just like teenage years, me being a bit like sad and like I just felt kind of very like out of place. Like I grew up in like I grew up in like a white neighborhood, which is fine. Like it wasn't that much racism, but when I did, I did feel it because I was a very sensitive child. So that obviously took an effect, and then
And how did you show that? You know, were you frustrated? Were you?
yeah, I was sad. I was like, yeah, so a lot of like not wanting to do anything and like being in bed all the time and like beating myself up and not really having like I mean obviously I had my parents as role models, but there wasn't a lot of representation for black women in everything that I was around. There was no one like me in my school, there was no one in like magazines. I just didn't feel like I was like yeah, wanted or anything. Um
And what do you think could have helped? You know, knowing that we now live in a age where we can implement these kind of new ideas, what would have helped you?
um I am yeah, definitely representation. And now I just feel like people are so body positive that I could have done with that when I was younger because there was like that kind of like fad of being a size zero, and I was like just having that feeling of being like I will never be that. I will never be like a size zero and white and skinny and blonde. Like I could never do that. I'm never gonna be like. And for a woman, like it's kind of like ingrained in you that that is how you should be, or like that is like your main point
Yeah,
in
yeah,
life.
yeah.
Like you should be looking good, you should be a certain size. Yeah, it started from that, but there was like yeah,
It's tough as well because, you know, boys and girls experience life in very different ways. I
yeah,
think women are always subjected to a lot more scrutiny for what they wear,
yeah,
for putting makeup on, you know,
yeah.
and all the things that young boys, I think, tend to avoid in the early days. And maybe
It's
it
masking,
hits,
isn't it? Masking their emotions.
yeah, I think guys tend to hit it later in life.
Yeah.
I think that later on in life, when school's over, when the football's gone away, and you know whatever they do as a kid, you know, then they have to experience real life. You know, and I think that probably hits them a lot later on. Obviously, suicide in men
Right.
is the biggest killer, and that's crazy because you know how is it that you know men are more susceptible to suicide than women?
There's just a lot of pressure on men to like to be good at something. Not, do you know what I mean? Sorry.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't know exactly if I've ever felt that, you know, I have to perform to a certain level or to a certain standard, but there's always pressure to take care of other people.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I think in today's day and age, we accept, you know, we joint responsibility for families, for everything. But the traditional stereotypes is, you know, if we got no money, you go and work. You know, if we're doing this, you protect us. All these stereotypes, which potentially just hit men like with a bang when they realise that they can't deal with that kind of pressure. It's interesting. I mean, you're obviously saying that a lot of your work is inspired by your mental health, and I guess is it? Do you ever think about other people's sort of mental states compared to your own?
Yeah, I think with it's it yeah, definitely compare and despair. I used to think that everyone else was happy but me. Do you know? Because you just sometimes you can portray like this beautiful life and you looks like you're happy and things. And I was just like, why don't I have that? I feel like I'm the only one that wasn't living this beautiful life. Like, yeah.
And do you think that's just because of the environment you're in, or do you think that there's anything? Because, like, you know, some people believe, and I don't know, I'm not an expert, but mental health illness can come, you know, in a family, or, you know, it can be hereditary. Do you think it stems from any sort of thing, or do you think it's kind of the environment?
Yeah, I think yeah. Um, it's definitely the environment for me. It might have been like triggered by hormonal things as well, like but I would say mostly environment and events like traumatic things.
Mm.
Um,
And I mean, the interesting thing now, of course, is that more people are experiencing mental health issues. And I say more people, who knows, but people are willing to do something about it. They're willing to find support out there, and they're willing to be quite vocal and honest about how they're feeling. What sort of support, or what do you think is now available for people to to do, which wasn't maybe available when you were growing up?
Voice what they're feeling. I think that's the best thing. To get validation from other people that you aren't alone is just like the best thing that can help. I mean, people could talk to me until I'm like blue in the face about like what I should be doing, like maybe exercising and stuff like that. But when you're in that mindset, you can't think about like this. That's such a big leap. But just being validated by someone else for feeling the way you feel, it's just like, oh, okay, maybe I'm not like, I'm not the only one. This is like a common problem. Or,
and I mean, does that have to come from someone you know, or can it be a complete stranger?
No, it can be a complete stranger. I find solace in like spilling my guts to complete strangers. I find it really like nice.
Yeah,
if they'll listen.
I think that's why podcasting's big now, because I think people like to have support from people they don't know, and maybe that's a tough thing, isn't it? And especially if you're a mum or a dad and you've got kids who are experiencing these pressures, it's very hard for them to help. Is that right? Would you say that there's...
It's tricky, yeah. It is very tricky to like really understand what someone's thinking. It's even tricky for me to know what I'm thinking. I really have to like be aware of what it is that I've been saying to myself to make me feel that way. And I've also learned this when I do have like a peak of emotions, to just think that it's just a sensation in my body. It's not like I could be thinking about whatever, but it's really just a sensation in my body. It's like sometimes it's a sinking feeling here if I feel really like low or down, and just kind of like attributing those emotions to like the feeling in your body.
Okay,
it really kind of grounds you.
So recognizing,
and just think that I can overcome that feeling in my body. Like I've had like a broken finger, like I can live with that like feeling in my body.
But is it something that's broken, or are our emotions something that is like continually just changing and changing and changing? Because I think becoming a victim of mental health is a lot about just saying there's no answer, there's nothing I can do about this. When, as you said, like it's continually it's always changing, right?
What do you mean?
Well, your emotions are always changing. Your physical states are changing. Your mindset changes. All the time. I don't really know how super successful people in like big companies do it, because they end up being exposed to so much pressure on a daily basis that. Are they more in tune with their emotions and can take 1,000 negative things happening a day?
Probably more emotionally resilient. Yeah, definitely. Because you've got to not let circumstances dictate how you're feeling. Like, I mean, that's easier said than done, but to have resilience and bounce back.
Resilience. Yeah. Emotional resilience. That should be a new thing. I haven't heard much about how to build emotional resilience. Because the school of hard knocks. Of course, you're failing at things and then getting back on that horse and being able to accept criticism. That is kind of part of the problem when it comes down to experiencing mental health issues and not feeling, accepted. So how do we find the balance?
Ooh. Big old questions.
It's a big question, but it's interesting because we all deal with it in different ways, right? And I think, you were saying that your art obviously reflects a lot of how you feel. Do you get a lot of solace out of just getting in the studio and just...
Definitely, yeah. But then again, I need to like distinguish whether I'm doing it to run away from something I'm feeling or I'm doing it because I love doing it. Because sometimes I can bury myself in work and not have to pay attention to what I don't want to pay attention to.
Yeah.
So
just making things for the sake of making it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's healthy habits and there's not so healthy habits. So, I mean, that to me is quite a nice habit to have as a way of seeking solace.
Yeah. No, I mean, I understand because I like to tell stories about things that are real to me. And I've had friends who've experienced addiction problems and mental health issues, and I've experienced some form of depression in times where it's been tough. And in order to not trivialize those feelings I had and make sure they go to good use, I've written a film which I'm hoping to get into production next few months, and it is about a young woman who has addiction problems, and she tragically decides to take her own life, and she's stood on the edge of a platform and she's about to jump, and then she gets a phone call from a stranger, a con man, who says, have you been involved in an accident recently? It wasn't your fault. And she says, well, I'm about to be. And this story takes place about how generally how a stranger can be the person who you should talk to, or who you can talk to to connect with.
Definitely. And that's why I think therapists work so well, because you're not, to have that kind of connection, you can just say anything to them, and then they're not going to judge you because they don't know you.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, that is a really nice thing, to be able to talk to strangers.
Do you find therapy living in a warehouse? Like, do you find it can be
therapeutic
living with lots of people that you can chat to all the time?
Yeah, definitely for me. I'm such an introvert, so if I lived by myself, I'd be a hermit. I wouldn't go out. So forcing myself to interact with people, even if I don't want to sometimes.
No, I get that feeling, And it always comes, when you literally don't want to go out, but then someone comes and they want to have a conversation with you, and next thing you know, you're like, okay, fine, I'll chat.
Yeah.
And that helps, right? That really does help. I think talking about problems can really lead to, resolving them, but at the same time, there's also, I feel like there's just so much pressure on people to fix the problem.
Yeah.
It's like, how can you fix a problem you don't really understand very much? Therapists I've always questioned whether or not therapy is more about having a soundboard where you can just bounce back ideas off, and not necessarily someone that's going to fix your problems.
No, it's not fixing. I wouldn't say it's fixing the problems, but it's helping to understand and move past the problems. I'd say.
Yeah.
See, my therapist is a humanist therapist. So I think, again, like going back to your point about diagnoses. Diagnostics. Like, I was diagnosed with borderline personality disorder, and I really let that define me. So to have someone that didn't see me as just a diagnosis and just saw me as a human being with, past traumas and things that I haven't worked through was just such a relief, because I felt like I was like broken almost, being like labeled in a certain way. I mean, it's obviously I wasn't like, there's certain different category or different traits in the DSM that you can align yourself with, so you can always be like more than one and things like that. So yeah, I'd say like in the bigger picture, we should just operate in that way. Like,
What helped you the most about therapy though? Is it the person? Like, because therapist is quite a broad sort of spectrum. You're saying that what were they like?
Very calm. Kind of. When I spoke about something, she kind of prompted me to look deeper into what led me to that and how I felt at the time, and connect it with the things that are happening now and why I'm feeling like things like shame, and it's like that's a recurrent feeling for me, and how it got to be there.
So I mean, how do you deal with it without having someone like that? Because obviously, does it cost a lot of money, therapy?
Yeah, I mean the NHS. I was waiting for 2 years and I still haven't got an appointment.
Wow.
And that was after me being hospitalised.
Wow.
2 years ago.
So the support isn't quite there because it costs money, right? It's
funding, yeah. It's especially in Harrogate. I think it's one of the worst boroughs for mental health.
Really? Really? I mean, this is the thing. I think it's going to become much more apparent because genuinely we can't operate like this anymore.
No, we can't. I think people have got to see that the wider picture of mental health, it like trickles down to other things like dentistry. Like if you're not taking care of yourself, you're gonna have bad dentistry, which is costing the NHS money. And
one of the vices, I guess, is addiction, right? Is reaching for a bottle or going for the drugs and everything, and
it's causing other other problems for
knock-on
it.
effects, right? I've heard some some terrifying stories of. I heard about a dentist, right? A dentist was top in his field and went through a period of his life which he was finding stressful, reached for the bottle, and then was basically doing dentist operations whilst drunk off his face.
Oh my God.
And obviously, one of his patients was the person that called him out on it, and then eventually called the authorities and said, "This guy literally gave me a root canal whilst after drinking like half a bottle of whiskey." And you do think, well, where was the support before that?
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yeah, and we should definitely be thinking about that in schools as well. I'm such a big advocate for really understanding emotions when you're early, because I went through life until quite recently not knowing what I was feeling and not knowing what to attribute to certain feelings and why I was feeling them. And it's only recently that I've understood that, and I'm like, now I can control it, because it just gets very intense that I just I couldn't understand what was going on. It was like too much in my body. But yeah, having that understanding earlier on helps so much.
I can imagine. And it is a shame, isn't it? Because schools have got even more pressures these days. And, the annoying thing about schools is that their curriculum was literally written like, I don't know, 70, 80 years ago. And okay, it changes over time, whatever. But mental health it's such it's not new, but the reason why we're all seeing it more and more and more is because of social media. And the real question is, are kids being taught how to use social media? Because I don't think they are.
It's a bit of a catch-22, isn't it?
It's a massive catch-22. Kids literally are now expected to grow up in a world where they go on Instagram and the next thing you know, they think that's what their life is. And I don't know what the answer is. You learned art in school, right? You were pushed into an area where they were like, here's some paints.
Kind of.
Yeah?
I actually, in school, I didn't go for art that much. Well, I enjoyed it. I definitely did. But I was thinking that I should do something that would better my career. So I took business studies and geography and stuff that I did.
Wow.
Stuff that I kind of like.
Where did you get that pressure from? I mean, that's...
I don't know. I don't know. I think it...
Did you put that on yourself?
Maybe. I think I did.
Yeah, interesting.
So I kind of denied myself the stuff that I really loved. So I think that's kind of why I work so hard at it now, because I've kind of I've missed the opportunity, not missed the opportunity, but I'm making up for lost time.
I love that. I love that a lot. It's interesting because kids, I mean, without going down to the road of trying to diagnose why every kid is different, but every kid is different, and every kid has different pressures and different feelings that will inevitably lead them in a good or a bad sort of, not a bad direction necessarily, but something that they want to truly do. I think the biggest problem is the fact that, I mean, I don't know, how have your parents embraced your art? Are they supportive with what it is you do?
Yeah, they're supportive. Yeah. Yeah, I wasn't, because I live in quite a small house, so I didn't have the space to draw and stuff at home, so that was a bit annoying.
Not the space you have here.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, 20 people can put up with your constant your art, and that is interesting as well, because as a kid you're always trying to please your parents first, right? And I kind of fell down that thing as well, where I didn't go into filmmaking straight away because my dad was a filmmaker, and so I was always very much look, this is him, that's Dad. This one on the left, yeah.
You do look alike.
He, daddy old boy. Yeah. He is, he is an inspiration to me. But I always thought I didn't want to do it because he does it. And I was always like, he's
it's
not
that teenage rebellion, isn't it?
Yeah, I wanted to do all sorts of things before I realised filmmaking was for me. But at no point did he ever tell me what I was doing was right or wrong. And I think that's the thing. My dad was very hands off when it came to wanting to push me in any direction.
That's good.
Yeah, I think so. But that's the point, isn't it? As a kid, do you want to be led? Do you need to be led in some areas?
You could be guided to a certain point, but
yeah. I mean, we can't blame parents for everything, right?
No,
love to, but eventually you have to walk your own path, and that's what's nice about growing up as well, and you go through all the good times, bad times, and you come to a position where we're now like, right, hello world,
hello, I'm here.
Yeah, exactly. So look, what is it that you stand for as a person, Zoe?
Oh, I stand for honesty, just being totally honest.
With yourself?
With yourself and other people. Just being An open canvas?
An open canvas?
Open book, blank canvas.
Yeah, something to do with canvases and
hybrid.
books. Yeah.
And yeah, I think just don't really care what other people think about you.
Isn't that the advice, folks?
I know.
Yeah.
And it gets better, like, when you get older as well. Like, I feel really content with myself, really, really happy in my body. Just because I don't really give a shit about anyone else.
Hey, we got to be grateful, right? I mean, I'm super, super grateful for the fact that, I mean, not only do we live in a country that we're not in war, we're not in poverty, but we're able to express what it is we want to do inside us. That means that we don't have the pressure. I think a lot of people undervalue the fact that we live in a country that supports the arts. As much as I know there's budget cuts and all sorts of stuff from a government level, but in general, being an artist is embraced.
Yeah.
And I've spoken to a few people now that are like, oh, it's so hard being an artist. I'm like, what the fuck on about, man? Like, people love artists, man. Like, it's you that's finding hard to accept that it's not all, beautiful stuff. It's not all...
Depends what you want out of life. Like, you don't have to be going for, like, fame and fortune or anything. It's just, what is it doing for you?
Yeah.
How is it working for you?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I feel like being in the environment that we're in right now, in a warehouse with, I mean, we've also got 17 other warehouses around us that all have just as, creative and not just creative, technical people as well. We get exposed to so many different people's lives that now it gets easier to say, well, actually, this is what I want to do in life, whereas I feel like, especially if you've not moved out of your hometown. I mean, geez, I've got a lot of friends who have done the same thing since the age of 16. And it's no disrespect at all because, they've got families now and whatever, but
content there. Yeah.
Very, very content. But I often feel like they're the type of people who one day maybe look back and say, damn it, why didn't I go and do that?
That's the thing, isn't it? Because it's scary to do something new, and it's like you get that jitters, like stepping out of your comfort zone. But you need that to progress.
Absolutely, yeah.
You do, however small it is.
I like the story of the lobsters. I don't know if you've heard this. So lobsters, they grow out of their shell when it feels like it's too tight. And of course, when they do grow out of their shell, they are suddenly naked. They have no shell.
Oh,
they shed that shell, and that shell, the new shell, takes a while to form around them, right? It's so uncomfortable the moment they don't have a shell around them.
Yeah, they're really vulnerable.
The safety net is gone, but they build that thick skin until they suddenly go, get me one of those.
Oh,
yeah, absolutely. We need to get a chef in here. But the point is, it's going to feel uncomfortable. Life is about challenges and tribulations and, getting through the tough times and finding the good ones. So, yeah, I think it's really good fun, and I certainly love being here.
Yeah.
Anyway, let me give you a little present because are you spiritual in any way?
Yeah.
Do you? Because
Let me guess. Is it a cone of incense?
No, absolutely not. I'll be honest, this was actually handed down to me from my mother, who is incredibly spiritual. But she says to keep this on me, to feel positive, and to always to realise that someone is always there for you.
Oh, that's really nice. Thank you.
It's kind of nice because quite clearly it's a little bit battered as well, but I've taken that around the world with me in places, and to be really honest with you, every time I'm out travelling, I feel like I'm going to lose it.
Yeah.
And so I just want to pass it on to someone else.
Then we'll take care of it.
Yeah, but
I'll put it on a necklace.
Well, that's it. I'm sure you can make something cool out of it. Or if not, just feel like there's always someone with you, because I think that's the number one thing is
my guiding angel.
Your guiding angel, exactly. I mean, I'm not spiritual, but that's, I freaked out when I'm like, on a plane, I'm like, if I don't find this, the plane's going to crash. I know it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, literally. And I'll grab it and I'll like, oh my God.
I love plane rides.
Well, that's why I have to get rid of it, because I'm like, you know what? I just need to sleep on a plane now. Planes scare me.
Oh, I quite like them.
Oh, yeah, I don't know.
I'm a bit of a roller coaster kind of person as well, though.
Really?
Oh, I do love a thrill.
Oh, what sort of roller coasters? Like Alton Towers, Thorpe Park?
We went to the one in Florida. Me and my dad, we love roller coasters.
Wow.
We went on the biggest one. I can't remember what it's called, but I love stuff like that. Really.
And there's something about my filmmaking imagination that when I hear a story about a roller coaster disaster, I'm a bit like, same with planes, and you got to get over that, right? You got to.
I mean, planes are a lot safer, I think.
Yeah, I mean, you say that. The plane that I ride to get to the Channel Islands and back.
Is it a small one?
It's a very, very small plane.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's about 15 seats, and it's very, I mean, it's not rare that you'll see a bit of the window hanging off, or when I was coming back a few
Hanging
weeks ago,
off?
yeah, like hanging off, like bits of just a bit of rubber, like whatever, It's not necessarily
God.
bad, but you question whether this
Yeah.
thing has got. Yeah, the door was actually slightly open the last time I was coming back, and I knew it because I was like, I feel a bit of air coming from there, but at the same time I was a bit like, it's all right, it's a plane, They're good
Oh
planes,
wow.
right? Now, the only problem I had there was I had some kind of sinus problem when I was landing
Okay.
because I was on descent, and as I started descending, my eyeball, like just behind my eyeball, just started being in so much pain. I thought, this is it, I'm going to die, or I'm going to wake up in hospital and everyone
Oh.
like, oh, you fainted on a plane. And as we got lower and lower, my eye just began feeling so much pressure. And anyway, as we landed, I said to my girlfriend, I was like, look, I'm having a problem right now. I'm having an issue. She's like, what's wrong? I'm like, my eyeball. She's like,
My eyeball.
your eyeball's fine. I'm like, no, it's not. No, it's not. Anyway, I got off the plane. I googled it. Pain behind my eyeball whilst descending, and I found out that there is I think it's called like aerosinus syndrome or something.
Okay.
Which basically means that if the pressure on the outside of you is different to the pressure inside of you, and I'm not attributing this to the plane, so if the airline's listening right now, I'm not trying to see you, but I apparently there's like this problem with air pressure, and it creates this immediate problem inside your sinuses that just it was terrible. Yeah, it was terrible. It's the only time I've taken 4 ibuprofens, which I would never advise taking 4 ibuprofens
At the
because
same time.
yeah, like I got out of the airport, went straight to the little shop, and I was like, right, just give me them. But I took it because I was in so much pain,
Yeah.
and
Wow, that sounds horrible.
yeah. Anyway, I wanted to give you this little present so
thank
that you
you.
could always feel that someone is there with you, no matter what. So yeah. Anyway, Zoe, thank you so much for coming on to the
Thanks
show.
for having me. It's been really
You're
nice to talk.
We're gonna have to get you back on at some
Yeah,
point
definitely.
in the future for sure. Bring in anything that you can to show us.
I'll show you
your
some new
artwork.
work, some new conversations,
New stuff.
new stuff.
New stuff. All right, there you go.
Right,
Thank you
see
very
you
much
later.
indeed. Bye bye.
Bye.
All right, and we'll cut there.